Okay, in this video I'm going to do a continuation of another video I did that was called What Are Ghosts? And we're going to be talking about the physical characteristics of apparitions. If you haven't seen the very first video where I'm talking about veridical hallucinations, that kind of thing, you might want to watch that first so you don't get lost on this one. But anyway, let's get down to it. So what are these physical characteristics that were pulled from all the studies that have been done on apparitions? Well, here's what they are. First, they are solid looking and lifelike. See how I look? This is how they look. They look solid. They're not translucent, they're not glowing, they're not flowing through the air. That is superstition, folklore, and Hollywood, okay? They look solid. That brings up a very interesting position. If you're walking down the street, right, and you see some kid leaning up against the wall in a Metallica t-shirt, would you just assume it's a regular person? Or it could be a ghost, they look solid. Would you just keep walking by? Would you go do a little Ghostbuster, test, try to poke him? Because see, that's another trait. They're dressed in period clothing. Now, if that clothing is substantially different, like, say, a Civil War soldier, it stands out and you're going to notice it. But what if it's somebody that's so more recently deceased? Well, they're going to look just like everybody else. How the fuck are you going to know? It's funny because those of you who have watched Ghost Adventures, these kind of shows where they do a lockdown, that's not some bravado bullshit like they put on TV. The original purpose was, since we know they look like us, we're going to lock ourselves in. There's 3 people here, 3 investigators. We see somebody other than the 3 of us, we need to check that out. That's the whole reason the lockdown was implemented, not as what you're seeing today on TV. Next, apparitions have been seen to appear or disappear in enclosed rooms and pass through doors and walls. Okay, that's pretty much a given thing, but it's an important trait because that's often how they're noticed. There's a great story that I've heard here locally from the Luna Mansion in Los Lunas, New Mexico. One of the first sightings is, the guy is taking beer upstairs where they store the beer in the cold storage up there. And when he got to the top of the stairs, there was a woman who he first thought was maybe one of the waitresses, kind of saw her moving off this to the side. When he turned and got a good look at her, she walked through a piece of furniture. And that's when he went, whoa, wait, what the hell? And it kind of keyed him off that something else was going on. So it's an important thing. Also, talking about that Ghostbuster test, going up and trying to poke them. Another trait that's been brought out through all the surveys and census reports. Attempts to touch an apparition have either resulted in the figure eluding the hand, or moving to a place where it cannot be touched, or the hand simply passing right through. So another interesting trait. Maybe it's because of the whole vertical hallucination thing. If it is sentient and it knows, well, if I can touch it, I know it's real, so it's backing away, who knows? Kind of interesting little trait there, though. Next, some apparitions may exhibit behavior that suggests that they have some degree awareness of their surroundings. If you're curious about this, you need to look at several of the older SPR cases. There's several where the apparition is moving around, or another person enters the room and the apparition moves to avoid the new person coming into the environment. That kind of interesting there. Also, a comparison of 4 separate studies suggests that non-haunting apparitions tend to be people with close ties to the witness, in other words, a relative, rather than strangers. So the people, in other words, the people who are most likely to see an apparition are people seeing an apparition of a deceased loved one. That's kind of important when we start talking about, people going to hotels looking for ghosts and stuff. Well, unless you're related, the odds of you actually experiencing something are significantly lower. How low? 11% according to the studies. Kind of freaky. Finally, the farther that one gets from the person's time of death, the less frequency the person's apparition appears. Okay, laws of thermodynamics appear to apply to this as well. Another trait. The appearance of an apparition can sometimes be accompanied by certain kinds of subjective effects, such as the feeling of cold, wind, or touch. Now I want to mention this thing about cold. They're not talking about cold spots. Cold spots are bullshit. But this is where the whole cold spot thing originates from. This is the feeling of cold when seeing an apparition or just before seeing the apparition. Not, oh, there's cold and they're sucking energy and making this area cold. No, that's not what it is. But this is the source material where that crap came from. You know, this person talks to this guy, that guy talks to him, and somewhere along the line it got distorted, and well, there you go. That's how that happened. Some can be purely auditory, seeming to manifest as sounds reflective of human activity. I've been on ghost hunts before with people, and to have one person very clearly hear something and everybody else goes, "What? I didn't hear anything." No, I heard it. I heard that, a voice of a woman or whatever. That is kind of, you know, suggestive of what some of the studies show. Another interesting thing, 70.5% of experiences reported happen at home. Of the remaining 29.5%, when not at home, almost a quarter happened while the percipient, or the witness, was in a car traveling. Only 16% of the cases occurred outside. So we're actually able to break down where these things happen, thanks on the data collected by all the reports. Now, inside the home, guess where they've seen? 53% occurred in the bedroom. Now keep in mind, they have ruled out any type of case which seems to have something like night terrors, sleep paralysis. There has to be information suggesting the witness was awake, was not in bed. Even with that removed, 53% still happen in the bedroom. 11% are on the stairs, 8% is in the kitchen, 6% in the dining room, and 5% in the garden or living room. Now here's a big one. 50% of all cases occur in the daytime, 50% in darkness. You know, a lot of people say, well, you got to look at the right time. 50% in the daytime. If you're actually going and investigating one of these cases where it happened in the daytime, well, that's kind of when you want to be investigating. During the day, not at, 11 o'clock at night. And finally, there's a slight prevalence of cases that occur in the summer months. So it seems to be a little bit more of them seem to be happening in the summer than the rest of the time of the year. But that's what the data from these studies suggest. As I've said before, the studies aren't perfect, but it's the best that the paranormal community has. So taking these things into consideration, you now have an idea of what an apparition is supposed to do. And that's very important. If you're basing the stuff you know off folklore, off Hollywood, off superstitions, off these crappy books that, have been written in, you find in the New Age section of your library, you're not even going to be looking for the correct thing. It'd be like going to a river and I want to get a rainbow trout and oh, catfish, that's what we're looking for. I'm not looking for the catfish, I'm looking for the rainbow trout. I'm looking for the wrong damn thing. So knowing this information is important. And as I said, I put the links down for the actual research. You can Google that, find a little bit more of the papers. Also, if you go to my website, ghosthuntingbadass.com, there's a link on the top that says to the library. I've put a lot of those papers, different types of studies and stuff inside that as well. So feel free to check that out. Any questions? Put them down in the comments, and I will see you guys in the next video. Adios.